Hello and welcome. You're watching Headlines Today with Karan Thapar. The top focus tonight, the flood-hit state of Jammu and Kashmir. Even as floodwaters recede and rescue operations pick up speed, there are countless still stranded, still hungry and homeless. And as locals vent their fury, the Chief Minister has hit out at his critics.
It'll be a long time before we can recognize Srinagar again.
किसी से बात नहीं कर पा रहे, बिल्कुल हम टोटली कट है।
खाने को नहीं है, पीने को नहीं है, बस
4 दिन से भूखे प्यासे बैठे हुए।
Oh my God! No, don't worry. You carry on. No problem. This is part of it.
What we have now is anger that's spilling over. Without food or water for the last 6 days, they've probably seen countless NDRF boats pass by, but no one's stopped for them yet. Close by is a hospital, and as our crew passes by on this NDRF boat, desperate, angry cries for help are heard from the hundreds of people holed up inside the hospital building in Srinagar.
Our first priority is those people who are staying in the Kacha buildings, and their houses are at the verge of collapse.
At the Srinagar helipad, army personnel have to intimidate some of the desperate victims who break a line and try to rush into the chopper waiting to fly them to safety.
सरकार की तरफ से नेता लोग कोई कहीं से कोई मदद
नहीं, लोगों ने मदद किया, अपना कश्मीरी भाइयों ने मदद किया, छोटा बच्चों ने मदद किया, बड़ा बच्चों ने मदद किया.
There is a serious shortage of drinking water, and the only relief camps visible are the ones set up in gurdwaras and community centers like this one in Santnagar.
ये लोकेट नहीं हो रहा है कि कौन कहां पर, हमारे सारे नेटवर्क्स बैठे हुए हैं, वो सबसे बड़ी दिक्कत है. और खास तौर पर पानी, पीने का पानी सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट.
रेस्क्यू ऑपरेशन थोड़ा हम 4 दिन के बाद आज निकले हैं. कम से कम रेस्क्यू ऑपरेशन जितना तेज होगा उतना लोग बचेंगे, उतने घर से रेस्क्यू होंगे लोग.
The wrath of people mostly falling on the local administration and the Omar government. The Chief Minister himself on the defensive. After days of photo ops and cursory appearances, Omar once again visible on the front lines Wednesday evening, clarifying his government's actions to Headlines Today.
We know that you've been working from, we've been speaking to the chief secretary people here, they've been describing how hard you personally have been working. But when we go out on an NDRF boat or an IF sortie, meet with people who've been affected, they are seething with rage against your government.
Who can blame them? I mean, they don't see what we're doing. They don't, I mean, who all do I explain to how long it takes to respond to a crisis of this nature? How long it takes to start accumulating material and flying it in?
But even as Omar harps on his government's proactiveness, his own officers cannot help but vent their anger.
जो ऑपरेशन हुआ, उनके जो रेस्क्यू ऑपरेशन जो है सब्सिक्वेंट एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन का काम था, जैसे उनका जैसे टेम्पोररी रिहेबिलिटेशन, तो उसमें किसी हद तक सिविल एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन फेल है.
With Rahul Kaval in Srinagar, Bureau Report, Headlines Today.
Emotional scenes are being witnessed at relief camps across the state. As goodwill pours in, the armed forces remain committed to not rest whilst there is even one person who needs to be rescued.
Perceived and projected by politically motivated groups for years as aggressors and the enemy in Jammu and Kashmir, the flood fury in the state has turned the tide. Because on the ground, the only hope for thousands of stranded Kashmiris has been the armed forces. The Army, Air Force and Navy for over a week have conducted the most astonishing humanitarian operation, rescuing close to 50,000 people, with hundreds more being brought to safety every day. High-tempo operations against severe odds have been conducted round the clock to ensure that every last person is saved and that there is no rest until nobody is left behind in the flood.
हम पिछले 4 दिनों से फंसे हुए हैं, एकदम बिल्कुल बेबसी की हालत में.
हम इंडियन आर्मी के बहुत शुक्रगुजार हैं कि उन्होंने वक्त पर आकर हमें हमारी जान बचाई.
It is only the armed forces and air force that has protected us and we are now living. But unfortunately, there is not a single person of state administration. There must be 10,000 people stranded in Raj Bagh, Johar Nagar. I was evacuated. Yes.
अल्लाह का पहले शुक्र है और ऊपर वाले के बाद शुक्र है हमारा इंडियन फोर्स का. Their job, very good, wonderful job. Too good, excellent, too good.
Emotional scenes are being witnessed at relief camps across the state. The goodwill pours in, even as the armed forces remain committed to finishing the task at hand.
And let me assure you that we are going to continue with this Operation Megh Rahat till everyone is pulled out and is rescued.
With the flood waters receding in Srinagar and other parts of the state, is it possible that deep-seated fears and prejudices towards the armed forces may be dissipating as well? And will this flood of goodwill last? Bureau Report, Headlines Today.
Headlines Today's reporters are trying to reach every part of the flood-hit state to try and reach out to those crying out for relief, to assist families to reunite, to share the trauma of those who have survived all odds. It's the most exhaustive coverage and we promise to be there for you.
After the massive deluge, it's despair that's setting in Jammu and Kashmir, the extent of which as unfathomable as the destruction in the valley.
Right behind us in downtown Srinagar, a Mi-17 helicopter of the Indian Air Force evacuating people who are stuck on top of that building. They've been stuck there for at least 4 days without food, without water. Where we are, it looks as if the Jhelum has flooded the entire city. All of it resembles one big river and the water currents are very fast, so much so that it is very difficult to be able to swim in these areas. These are the Mi-17 helicopters that are now evacuating people from areas where the NDRF has not been able to reach. The level of anger, the level of desperation, the level of frustration amongst these people rising as these people have been very lucky. They've been rescued, but there are several who are still stuck on other buildings, still waiting to be evacuated.
Right now we are on the road which is called the bypass. This is one of the arterial roads that comes from the Srinagar airport and into Srinagar city. In fact, if you go south down this road, you will hit the national highway towards Jammu and also towards southern Kashmir. Now, the scenes that we have seen on this road as we've gone along are absolutely terrifying. If my camera person can show, Prashant can show the shots, there are cars that are completely submerged. I in fact was in this area about a week back when the same area, if you can see these trees here, they are at least about 40 to 50 feet high and completely half of them submerged.
Srinagar continues to be the worst hit. Thousands remain trapped without food, without water, without their belongings, despite rescue efforts on a war footing. Hapless victims desperate for help. Even as Headlines Today's reporters aid in securing lives.
Trying to put an many hands, given relief material, you can see people stranded there, standing on cars, piled up with material, and water and biscuits are being provided. As you see that there is a road, and on the road, the cars are standing, trying to save their lives. You know, and there is just put in some biscuits and people are huddling together, running towards whatever food packets are being thrown at them.
As the army reach for the rescue 4 days on, in this locality of Jawahar Nagar, they are faced with a dilemma.
This is a dramatic, heart-rending scene where the Indian Army boats have reached out to people who've remained stuck inside their homes for days on end. For these people, the presence of the Indian Army, the presence of these boats has meant basically the difference between life and a certain death. As you're seeing on your screens, it isn't easy to make a decision on whom to take on board the boat and whom to not. But very often, calculations have to be made and ensured that the women, children and the elderly are rescued out first.
Thousands rendered homeless trying to gather whatever little is left after the flood fury.
This is how the tragedy of this flood has struck the people on living on the banks of Dal Lake. When the Dal Lake is flooded, people had to move out of their houses, taking whatsoever refuge that they could with the help of these boats. They came towards the banks of the Dal Lake, towards the upper reaches, and now have set up small little tents here and giving some sort of refuge to them.
Amid all the despair, the army has come up with a rather innovative way to connect to the people of Jammu to their loved ones.
We are in a village called Rakh Makwal on the Indo-Pakistan border in the Jammu region, and this village also faced the brunt of the floods which devastated this entire region recently. And you can see innovation which has been put forth by a local battalion of the Indian Army, which has converted a truck into a mobile charging vehicle. It is using a generator to provide power points through which the villagers of this village can charge their mobile phones.
With Rahul Kanwal, Mahrukh Inayat, Maushmi Singh, Jugal Purohit, Shujaul Haq and Manaman Singh Cheena in Jammu and Kashmir. Bureau Report, Headlines Today.
The race for Delhi has intensified, with Aam Aadmi Party Chief Arvind Kejriwal meeting the Lieutenant Governor and submitting footage of the sting conducted by his party on BJP's Sher Singh Dagar. Within hours, the BJP hit back, alleging Kejriwal was seeking a backdoor entry into power.
Arvind Kejriwal knocking at the Lieutenant Governor's door to stall BJP's march. This just 24 hours after almost calling him a BJP agent.
This is a letter written by Honorable Lieutenant Governor to the President of India. Yes. Which is 4th September 2014, which says, I shall be grateful if the President of India grants approval to invite BJP. Why should he be grateful for BJP? It's not a question of language. He is personally grateful if BJP is invited.
But today, AAP didn't doubt the Lieutenant Governor's judgment.
हमने एलजी साहब को कहा है कि ये रिक्वेस्ट अब बदल दें, क्योंकि भारतीय जनता पार्टी हॉर्स ट्रेडिंग करके सरकार बनाने की कोशिश में है.
AAP plans to build on its sting triumph further. The next move will be an FIR against BJP MLA Sher Singh Dagar. But the BJP is giving it a hard fight. It hit back with proof of AAP's double standards.
जो बार-बार केजरीवाल साहब कहते हैं ना कि लेफ्टिनेंट गवर्नर चला रहे हैं, ये इनके लोग क्या कर रहे हैं? और क्या नैतिकता का तकाजा था कि सरकार चली गई, वो प्रधानमंत्री नहीं बन पाए, लेकिन ये चेयरपर्सन अभी तक इन पर बैठे हुए हैं. इस लिस्ट में सभी लोग बैठे हुए हैं. ये इनको खुद ही इस्तीफा दे देना चाहिए.
Day one after SC said the time of a Delhi government formation saw hectic politicking. AAP waving its sting CD and BJP pulling its own charge sheet against AAP. But the tug of war offers no solution, with all eyes on the president for his move. With Brijesh Pandey and Ankit Tyagi in Delhi, Shujoy, Headlines Today.
The BJP seems to be split over the issue of love jihad. Venkaiah Naidu rejects the whole theory. Others claim to be in favour of love development, as they call it. But the party is yet to act against their divisive leader Yogi Adityanath. And now he's found some ally support from the Shiv Sena.
The Sena vowing to aid BJP's Yogi in countering the much tom-tommed issue of love jihad. The BJP claiming otherwise, yet curiously refusing to act against the divisive MP. NDA's oldest ally Shiv Sena has jumped onto the love jihad bandwagon, clearly sensing likely poll gains. An article in the party's editorial mouthpiece Samna has labelled Love Jihad as an international plot to hit Hindu culture. Shiv Sena President Uddhav Thackeray endorsed BJP's Yogi and his recent vitriolic, and also RSS Chief Mohan Bhagwat's warning to Hindu girls. Forced to drop Love Jihad from its Meerut executive agenda, the BJP is now claiming to be in favour of love development.
I believe the Shiv Sena would be able to say best about the Samna. As far as Bharatiya Janata Party is concerned, our only agenda is love development. We love development, and that is what our Prime Minister has been working for, and we all are committed towards that.
The BJP had clarified on its official line on the issue, first on Headlines Today.
I want to ask you to comment on what Lakshmikant Bajpai, not just an ordinary MLA like Som, but your party UP president has said about rape, clearly alluding to Indian Muslims. He says, have they got the certificate to rape girls because they belong to a particular religion? And then he adds, 99.99%, mark that sir, 99.99% of the accused are Muslims. Should your party president in UP
alluding,
talk like this?
I don't know from where it has come.
Indian Express, 24th of August.
Secondly, if at all he has said this, I don't agree with him.
I'm very happy
I don't agree
to
with
hear
him
that.
at all.
You completely...
Rape has no religion. Terror has no religion. They are crimes and they should be curbed. And terror is anti-national. Whoever is involved in that, tough action should be taken.
But what about the Yogi? And does the BJP endorse his polarizing comments?
हम लोग स्वीकार करेंगे और हम लोगों ने तय कर रखा है कि अगर वो एक हिंदू बालिका को ले जाएंगे तो कम से कम 100 मुस्लिम बालिकाओं को हिंदू।
It is an open secret that the genesis of the word Love Jihad can be traced right back to the Saffron Brigade. Can they now hope to seek refuge behind a new phrase like love development? With Brijesh Singh and Ashar Khan, Bureau Report, Headlines Today.
Love Jihad is no longer a fringe theory. The BJP is pushing it, and it's also readying a plan to fight it, at least in Madhya Pradesh. The BJP Indore MLA wants Muslims kept away from Garba venues in her constituency to stamp out Love Jihad. The Garba diktat comes just 24 hours after the Modi government tried distancing itself from this communal theory.
गरबे के दौरान पूरे देश से 4.5 लाख बेटियां धर्मांतरित हो जाती।
The BJP has decided to rain on your festival parade. It has decided to hijack Garba celebrations for its communal politics.
जिन लोगों की हिंदू धर्म में आस्था और विश्वास नहीं है, उन लोगों को माँ दुर्गा के पंडालों में सिर्फ नाचने के लिए अनुमति नहीं दी जानी चाहिए। वो कोई भी ताकत जो हमारे देश के जनसांख्यिकी अनुपात को बिगाड़ने के पीछे पड़ी हुई है, और यदि वो हमारे गरबों को माध्यम बनाती है इस बात का, तो अपनी बेटियों को, अपने आयोजकों को जागृत करना ये हम सबकी जिम्मेदारी है।
Yes, you heard it right. BJP's Madhya Pradesh chief wants all Muslim men barred from Garba events to stamp out Love Jihad. BJP's Project Love Jihad playing with political perfection, timed with crucial by-polls in UP. This despite the Modi Sarkar's fervent denials over the existence of Love Jihad.
That's not the case with the general public in India. People in India, Muslims and Hindus, are living very cohesively, happily, and all effort should be made to see that the misunderstanding, if any, is removed and the law takes its own course. And if there are issues, the community leaders should sit together and discuss and sort out the issue.
But the reality is that the denials haven't stopped Yogi from spewing venom.
आखिर क्यों दंगे हो रहे हैं उत्तर प्रदेश में? दंगों के लिए हम लोग तो नहीं जिम्मेदार हैं। 2.5 वर्ष में 450 से अधिक दंगे, और दंगों के पीछे जो कारण है इस सरकार के सांप्रदायिक एजेंडे को प्रदर्शित करता है।
EC has slapped a notice on Yogi for his inflammatory speeches. And then Akhilesh's government moved to deny him permission for a rally in Lucknow, triggering loud BJP protests. But the reality is that the denials haven't stopped Yogi from spewing venom. Modi Sarkar may have trashed Love Jihad. BJP's UP unit may not have formally endorsed it. But apart from that, BJP continues to do everything on the ground to feed the Love Jihad fear. With Rahul Karaya in Indore, this is Samkhya Demarku.
On Tuesday, Telangana Chief Minister K. Chandrasekhar Rao showed that he could indeed become a Hitler for the media if journalists refused to toe his line in his state. His verbal assault included a threat to bury 2 offending Telugu TV channels 10 kilometers deep into the earth.
Friends from media to have lunch.
The meeting in Warangal on Tuesday was meant to be a tribute to freedom fighter, the late Kaloji Narayana Rao. But what Chief Minister K. Chandrasekhar Rao said at the meeting ironically raised questions about the freedom of media in Telangana.
Channel adu channel ama paatara istam jagrata ani cheptam. 10 kilometerల లోపల పాతర ఇస్తాం. తెలంగాణ శాసన సభను, తెలంగాణ వ్యక్తిత్వాన్ని, తెలంగాణ యొక్క అస్తిత్వాన్ని, తెలంగాణ ఉనికిని, తెలంగాణ గౌరవాన్ని అగౌరవపరిచే విధంగా కించపరిచే విధంగా ఎవడు వ్యతిరేకించినా మెడలు ఇరిచి అవతల బారిస్తాం జాగ్రత్త. ఈడియట్ ఆటలు సాగనీయమని చెప్తా ఉన్నాం. నేను చెప్తా ఉన్నా రాష్ట్ర ముఖ్యమంత్రిగా. అయినా మాకు స్వేచ్ఛ ఉండాలంటే ఉండదు కాక ఉండదు, ఇంకా ఎక్కువ చేస్తే ఇంకేమేమి ఉండన్నది ఉంటుంది. జాగ్రత్త.
KCR's outburst was in contrast to the stand of his government so far, which has been maintaining that the decision to black out 2 Telugu TV channels was taken by cable operators and not by the TRS government.
మీరు వారిని అడగండి బ్రదర్, మాకు సంబంధం లేని నుంచి మా మీద రుద్దుతే ఎట్లా? మీరేమైనా తప్పు చేసి ఉంటే వారితో మాట్లాడుకోండి. మేము తప్పు చేసాం ఫలానా విషయంలో మమ్మల్ని మన్నించండి అని వారితో మాట్లాడుకోండి, మాకే సంబంధం.
Stung by the Chief Minister's sharp language, journalists of the 2 channels protested outside Raj Bhavan in Hyderabad. They admitted the program aired on one of them showed Telangana leaders in bad taste. But having apologized, they want the Chief Minister to be magnanimous. If KCR's Warangal speech is anything to go by, they do not have much hope now.
If he asked for freedom of press, is this the way, how is this the attitude how a chief minister reacts for a freedom of speech from the press? Don't we have a right to ask for the freedom of speech?
The TRS justified KCR's language by saying it represented the anger of the people of Telangana.
This is a colloquial phrase, I said, see, in anger anybody will get it. That doesn't mean that one will be buried. दफन कर दे तुम बोलते थे, दफन करते कैसा ये भी?
ABN channel, which is one of the 2 channels off air since mid-June, now plans to move Hyderabad High Court.